Okay, I think I am live, but let me check. Okay, looks like we're live. um, Am I live then? Or is this just my YouTube player not working? Okay, that's not working either, so it looks like it's my YouTube player, so maybe I am live. Hey, we're meant to be on Twitch from today as well. Let's see if that's happened. It says offline. I guess not. Okay, that says failed to connect to server. Someone shout if you are in my YouTube chat, because looks like my YouTube... here we are. There I am. Okay, we're live. Oh, goodness me. One of these days, I'll get a start screen and then we can stop having the start of every stream be me working out whether I'm streaming or not. Meant to be also on Twitch today. Actually, if someone can type in the YouTube chat, that's useful, because I can see if my combined chat dock is working as well. Trying to expand a little bit. Get people across platforms, you know. All right, well, I see a couple of people are here. Yo, Oppenheimer, thank you. Nice to see you. All right, well, it looks like Twitch stream is not going to cooperate, but that's all right. I'll try setting that up again another time. Well, we've got some discourse. After I posted the FarmKind interview yesterday, which a lot of people have watched. Well, it's all relative, right? A lot of people by my channel standards. And we've got a fresh post from the FarmKind team on the Effective Altruism Forum. So I thought I'd take a look at this. I think before I haven't read this at all yet, but before I get into it, I think it's fair to say that the amount raised by the FarmKind campaign was less than we might have hoped. I will do a full video going over what I think went wrong and what I think went right, because I do think that fundamentally the idea is a good one, even if in this case it didn't go well. And I'm still kind of gathering my thoughts on all of this. I'll share some of that today, but I want to read this blog post as well for my own edification, as well as, you know, it might be interesting for everyone in the chat. And later on, yes, in the stream title, we are having a very exciting merch drop. So there's going to be Vegan 2.0 merch, and it includes a bit of a curveball that I'm hoping will, at the very least, generate some attention, and in the best case, generate a lot of donations to effective animal charities. So stick around for that. but we're going to take a look. We're going to get into it and see what Aidan Alexander and Tom Norman have to say on the EA forum. This is posted yesterday. Reflections on FarmKind's January media campaign. In January 2026, FarmKind ran a provocative media campaign which used controversial media messaging and materials to promote offsetting as an option for individuals who are concerned about factory farming but are currently unwilling or unable to change their diet. The campaign raised an estimated $16,700 to $59,300, explained in our results section below, and generated a number of media hits, including TV, and created some debates that many advocates have told us they found productive. However, we made mistakes in its execution and generated unproductive controversy within the EA and animal advocacy movements. This post aims to explain our theory of change, what happened, what we got wrong, and what we learned. We still believe mobilising the meat-eating majority to take action for farmed animals requires meeting them where they're at, which sometimes means provocative framing that distinguishes us from vegan advocacy, though we understand many in the movement disagree. However, we regret specific execution failures, particularly our insufficient stakeholder consultation, which risks sparking infighting within the animal movement. Yeah, okay, this is kind of in line with my sense of things after my conversation with the FarmKind team the other day. As I said at the start, I still think that the idea is a good one, and I think it's very important that we come up with ways of generating more resources for the animal movement. But as they've said here, their execution had some failures, and as a result, the campaign didn't really raise as much money as we might have hoped, and also caused some other problems, like infighting in the animal movement. I think that after speaking to the team the other day, I get a sense that outside of our bubble in EA and the animal movement, this probably had quite a limited impact in either direction, which it might have done. So obviously it didn't generate as much value of donations as we might have hoped. But I'm also not that convinced that it definitely had a negative impact on the rate of change in veganism. Though, yes, as they're saying here, there are other drawbacks and costs that that simple number of vegans, number of donors model doesn't account for, like infighting within the movement, which, I think some of it has been useful, as they say here, and productive, but some of it, there's been costs to that as well, right? Context. FarmKind is a donation platform that aims to bring more money into the movement against factory farming. People donate through our platform directly to 6 highly effective farmed animal charities. The donations never touch our bank account, and we don't take a cut. In 2025, we spent $0.25 million and raised $3.35 million. 13.27x gross multiplier, estimated 2.94x net counterfactual multiplier. Our platform has had more than 7,000 donations from more than 2,900 donors, of which 674 have active monthly subscriptions. Okay, that's an interesting number to have. This is their number of monthly donors, I guess, before this campaign, if they're talking about the end of 2025, or maybe just as this campaign had started. But yeah, as Tom said, they didn't get people signing up for a monthly donation as they'd hoped they might. So probably that number hasn't changed that much. It is, on one level, quite cool to see how small scale it is currently, because it makes you feel that, wow, if I'm one of these regular monthly FarmKind donors, I'm one of only about 600. Right? It's not like they've got thousands and thousands of donors and your money's kind of getting lost in the fray. That's a real meaningful amount to them if you're doing modest monthly donations. The goals of our campaign. All FarmKind activities ultimately aim to generate counterfactual donations to cost-effective farmed animal charities. Our activities exist on a spectrum from direct drivers, activities like YouTuber sponsorship that yield measurable immediate returns, like this example that generated $6,385. I need to get some of this sweet sponsorship money. I don't get paid anything for talking about FarmKind, just so people know. Let's have a look. This is an example of a successful FarmKind YouTube sponsorship. Okay, nice. They reckon that was good return. Generated $6,385. Nice. Okay, I see. So they have when they have recurring donations, they count them based on an estimated retention rate. So even where people do sign up to give the £15 a month, then probably they multiply that by, the average number of months that people give for, and then that gives them a total amount rather than a monthly amount. I guess that makes sense. So direct drivers like YouTube sponsorships, also indirect drivers like brand building and media activities like this op-ed, which increase our platform's SEO and serve as credibility signals to improve donor conversion over time. What's this op-ed? Have we seen this? We won't click on all the links, but I guess I had not seen this. The Daily Californian. I have dark mode on, so it's very hard to see what's going on sometimes. Okay, well that's that. This campaign was designed to newsjack mainstream discourse and pivot it toward factory farming. Primary goals. Drive donations directly, with the understanding that almost all potential donations occur in our North Star scenario of major TV coverage. Yeah, this is a key part that Tom emphasised in our conversation, so I'm going to read the note here. We expected TV to drive donations more reliably than news articles for a number of reasons, including A, the readership of articles across sites is very spiky, B, audiences self-select by reading headlines and not clicking the article, which means a higher proportion of readers are likely to come to an article with pre-existing strong views on a given topic. C, TV allows us to put forward our message more directly without the filter of a journalist write-up, which would likely leave out our direct call to action. Fair enough, yeah. Is there also just a larger audience? No? I guess it depends. Readership is very spiky, yeah, so I guess it depends. Land credibility boosting media, which serves as a trust signal. Land credibility boosting media, which serves as a trust signal on our platform to drive conversion and helps us land further podcast interviews, which we know to be a major direct donation driver. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so that's one effect that I suppose will continue here, that they can basically point to this news coverage and share this with potential podcasts that they might go on to talk about this at more length, even if they didn't manage to get the big TV coverage here. I guess that was achieved in one sense. Secondary goals: spread our core message that you don't have to be vegan to help animals. We think that many people who are not willing to change their diet currently assume that there's nothing for them to do about factory farming. We want them to know that's not the case, opening the door to future actions for animals and a shift in their identity towards being pro-animal. This hypothesis is informed by research from Rethink Priorities that finds that diet change is perceived as significantly more difficult than donating. Yeah, I have that on the other tab. I don't think we'll probably get around to reading that today, but... So, okay, this was kind of achieved as well. They did spread this message, right, to some extent. Platform Veganuary in the media, giving them another opportunity to make the case for diet change to a large audience that might otherwise not hear from them. Rally Veganuary's fans to defend and make the case for them publicly, increasing the publicity and potentially public donations they receive. Ooh, maybe this will mention our stream. To clarify, this was our goal. We're not claiming that this was a goal shared by us in Veganuary. Okay. I wonder how much donations Veganuary are going to get through Don't Forget Veganuary. So, I mean, they kind of achieved platforming Veganuary. I guess that there is no mention yet of risks or what could go wrong. How we envisaged it working. Here we go. By the way, this is... I don't know if it's too early to call time of death on this. Maybe it is the case that if they're going to get TV, it happens in the first week after the newspapers cover it. If that's usually the case, then I guess that has passed. But this is a bit more past tense than I might be inclined to talk about it. And we are still in January. Phase 1, bait. Each year the media writes stories critical of Veganuary and do this instead of Veganuary articles. For example, here, here and here. Yeah, we don't need to see all of that. We decided to use a provocative angle to bait UK tabloids and right-wing publications into covering us. The goal was to judo flip these outlets from their usual vegan scepticism into a more productive discussion about how to address factory farming, highlighting donations as an alternative. Small expected benefit in terms of donations. Phase 2, parlay. Leverage early tabloid interest into more sophisticated prestige media, radio, and most importantly, TV. This is where we could state our core message clearly to a massive audience. Brand benefit from prestige media, plus high potential donations from TV and radio, which we'd be testing for the first time. Phase 3, North Star. Our ideal outcome was a high-profile debate, e.g. on Piers Morgan, between FarmKind and a vegan advocate. The audience would discover that both sides agree factory farming is an atrocity and that there are multiple great ways to do something about it, and are merely debating which ones individuals should choose this January. Very high donation potential. Okay, interesting. Yeah. This fits with the conversation that we had, and it seems like basically they had to tone down the messaging to some extent, which sort of stopped them being able to get some of this more wide-reaching media. Tony mentioned that they did an LBC interview that didn't go out because it wasn't, they'd backed off some of the spicier messaging. Launching the campaign. We partnered with 3 top competitive eaters to talk about donating. So obviously they didn't get, or they haven't yet got, a high-profile debate on something like Piers Morgan, which would be very wide-reaching and enable them to make the case. And, a crucial part of this as well is that the audience who are watching something like that and are presumably for the most part opposed to the vegan, right, on a Piers Morgan or like one of these right-leaning kind of chat shows, and in which case they'd be sort of baited into donating instead, right? That's the position opposite the vegan in this case. Launching the campaign, we partnered with 3 top competitive eaters to talk about donating to offset the animal welfare impacts of their diets as they undertake one of their typical eating challenges. By working with individuals who are already eating meat, we reduced the suspicion often held by entrenched meat eaters that our secret goal is to make them vegan. This approach was informed by research from Pax Fauna, which suggests that meat eaters are more effective messengers to their peers than vegans are. Our goal was to provide social proof to meat eaters that people like them agree that helping farmed animals is a worthwhile cause. We built a microsite for the campaign, originally at forgetveganuary.com, now at can'tgiveupmeat.com, which presents a controversial framing for our campaign, that even a competitive eater can have as much or more positive impact on farm animal suffering as a vegan. This was accompanied by a mini-game where players would have to make it through Veganuary by dodging common anti-vegan tropes. The purpose of this was to make the website more engaging and also signal that our campaign was not entirely straight-faced. Playing as an oat milk carton trying to dodge but lions eat meat doesn't scream take me completely seriously. The website also explains how donations are used by our recommended charities to help farmed animals, and then gives visitors the option to set up a monthly donation through our compassion calculator. This website aimed to serve a dual purpose. On the one hand, it had to be consistent enough with the campaign framing that it would encourage the media to run our story. On the other hand, we also wanted it to be capable of converting users into offsetters/donors. We briefed the story as an exclusive to The Telegraph. This was then picked up by GB News and Daily Mail and Asia Business Daily. We also secured a TV spot on GB News and an op-ed in the Daily Mail. Yeah, that's true. They did get some for like broader media where they could express their message a bit more clearly. The GB News thing was pretty good, and also the Daily Mail op-ed I thought was pretty good also. This is the GB News segment if you haven't seen this. Why is it so small? If you can't read the little chyron, I mean, that's disheartening. This is vegan activist becomes meat campaigner. So kind of evidently they had to give a little bit of that hook to get the message on there. But yeah, that's not ideal. But I mean, what she's saying is obviously fine. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. They only had, I guess, a 3-minute slot there, but she made the case very clearly, and he said, yep, can't argue with that, basically. I wish you'd asked him at the end, will you sign up to donate, since he asked her about eating meat. 17 quid a month, come on, he can afford that. But very good interview, though, very good interview. And the Daily Mail op-ed we read the other day. All right, well, here's where it's going to get interesting. Coordination with Veganuary. Did you tell Veganuary about the campaign in advance? Yes, we wanted to understand and consider any concerns about potential harms to their work, as we genuinely want their campaign to succeed. We first told Veganuary in early November that we were going to run a media push calling on people to offset their diets in January. In early December, as our planning developed, we told them that the campaign would be called Forget Veganuary, and then we would work with competitive eaters for the campaign. Due to our internal coordination failure, explained in our What We Got Wrong section below, Veganuary did not see the actual landing page before launch. This was a significant oversight. While we had shared the concept and tagline, we would have ensured that they saw the full execution and framing before it went live. We should have ensured, sorry. We would have been happy to make adjustments earlier had we received feedback at that stage, but the responsibility for showing them the full picture was ours, not theirs. I will say they've been very clear about taking responsibility for which parts have gone wrong. I think they've been aggressively taking responsibility, as I think is part of the strategy, the wasp cake strategy here. They're not letting any shade come to the charities that they support or their funders and so on. So, you've got to give credit where it's due. Did Veganuary object to the campaign? Not as initially described, but upon seeing the full execution, yes. Specifically, Wendy, Veganuary CEO, clarified that the campaign tagline was more direct than she had anticipated and expressed concern that it could undermine both Veganuary and the value of diet change. By this point, we had conducted an interview with The Telegraph and the journalist was writing up the story, but from that point onwards, we looped Veganuary in more closely, including a number of calls between our founders and Veganuary leadership. We asked their view on whether/how to continue, shared drafts for their feedback, e.g. talking points before interviews and op-eds before submission, and made amendments accordingly. Is there bad blood between you and Veganuary? The FarmKind team remain on open and respectful terms with Wendy, and we want to emphasise that there is no personal animosity and we bear no ill will towards anyone associated with Veganuary. We remain in ongoing dialogue with Wendy, sharing all comms related to this campaign, including this, for feedback prior to release. Tony remains incredibly proud of the work she has done during her time at Veganuary and continues to wish for them to succeed. We particularly empathise with the perspective of Veganuary staff and community members. We acknowledge that the campaign may have been deeply demotivating to those working on diet change, and we are sorry. Does Veganuary endorse this campaign? To be clear, we do not claim Veganuary endorsed this campaign, and they bear no responsibility for the decisions we made. We encourage anyone upset by this campaign or to direct their blame entirely at FarmKind. Please do not take our actions as representative of any group other than ourselves. Yeah, again, very aggressive responsibility taking, which you have to respect. We encourage anyone upset by that campaign to direct their blame entirely at FarmKind. Not Chris Bryant. Could have added. What we got wrong. Underestimating the risk of movement infighting. Yeah, I think that's the big one. We correctly foresaw that many individuals would dislike the campaign, but we mistakenly assumed that any negative reaction would be directed at us. We didn't consider that we might be seen as speaking for a particular faction, e.g. welfarists or moderates, against another, e.g. vegan advocates or abolitionists. This was an oversight. While we were in contact with Veganuary's leadership and have no ill will against the campaign, we didn't consider that the appearance of opposition could trigger genuine infighting within the broader movement. We have since learned that the movement can start infighting even if the organisations are not actually at odds. Comments on this are interesting. Yeah, okay, I'll check out some of the comments as well. But yeah, this is kind of the point that I said about it's difficult to have kind of kayfabe fighting between organizations when they are more than a couple of people on each side, because it's too easy for things to get lost in translation, I think. Some advocates have pointed out that the ideal amount of movement debate isn't zero, and that productive disagreement sometimes requires challenging prevailing approaches. We take that point. However, infighting has historically been a destructive force within animal advocacy, consuming advocates limited time and energy on attacking each other, rather than addressing factory farming. If you're going to risk sparking it, that should be a deliberate, carefully considered choice, not an accidental side effect. Okay, this is interesting. I mean, I really do like this point that somebody said. Was this one of the plant-based universities guys? I think this was Nathan McGovern, maybe, who said the ideal amount of debate isn't zero. Infighting historically been destructive force, consuming animal. So it's more about opportunity cost in this understanding, where it's just we're wasting our time, basically. Are there other costs? I mean, there could be costs to organizations from, being demotivated and stuff like that, right? Might become less productive. You're still kind of talking about opportunity cost, productive time. I think, if it upsets people in pro-animal organizations, and then they are more likely to leave the movement and stuff like that, that's obviously a cost as well. To clarify what we mean by infighting, we're not referring to critical forum posts or heated Slack discussions. That's normal movement discourse. The concern raised by experienced advocates was about larger scale factional conflict, where organisations or cohorts actively work to undermine each other's campaigns, counter-protest each other's actions, or spend significant resources attacking other parts of the movement. We don't have deep experience with the history of such conflicts in animal advocacy, so we largely deferred to advisors with far more movement experience. We heard a range of different perspectives on how to proceed and took a highly risk-averse approach. Interesting. It seems to me like it was not an extremely risk-averse approach. Risky approach, surely. We're genuinely uncertain whether this was appropriate or whether we cut our media push short. Oh, okay, I see. They're talking about cutting it short earlier than they might have done. Yeah, I mean, in that first week, I was thinking these guys must be really hanging in there, right, given all of the backlash from, again, like people in their circle. So that must have been very difficult to deal with. And I did think, I wonder if they're going to come out and say, sorry, we forget about it. Cancel the whole thing. In the end, they didn't do that, but they did curtail the message enough that arguably it kind of hindered their ability to get further coverage. Although, who knows if that would have been the case anyway. Unfortunately, I find it hard to believe that they couldn't foresee this infighting, etc. To be honest, comes off as feigning ignorance to me. Or like how they said it wasn't intended to be an anti-vegan when it blatantly was. Did they say it wasn't intended to be anti-vegan? I mean, it was sort of performatively anti-vegan in my view. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, interesting, Oppenheimer. I mean, you could say it's naive. I mean, I guess they're saying we didn't have deep experience with the history of such conflicts in animal advocacy. I mean, it's run by two pretty young guys who don't have a background in the animal movement, as far as I know. Of course, Tony's been in the movement for a while. But okay, they're saying they took a risk-averse approach in terms of cutting it short early. We're genuinely uncertain whether this was appropriate or whether we cut our media push short unnecessarily, but we acknowledge the latter is a real possibility. So clearly they had some people saying you should have stuck with it longer and been more bullish. I mean, I said in the interview you kind of had to stick with it once you'd said it to see it through. What we would do differently, we will more carefully model how campaigns might be perceived as factional, even when that's not our intent, and consult with people across different parts of the movement earlier in the planning process. Yeah, so it sounds like they expected this to be kind of controversial, but there was maybe limited knowledge about how this could play into sort of pre-existing factions and exacerbate pre-existing tensions. All of that's very complex, right? Because it is just all of the complicated social relationships between all of the people who have been part of the movement much longer than I have. And if you speak to these people, of course, there's complicated, even like social dynamics in people who have worked in the same field for a long time, right? So one does have to take care in kind of adventurous framings like this, let's say. 2, insufficient stakeholder consultation. Due to our mistake above, we did not consult or inform stakeholders like our past funders, our recommended charities, and other key movement figures, other than Veganuary themselves, before launch. This would have allowed us to explain our intentions, our theory of change, and our amicable feelings towards Veganuary ahead of time, ensure they didn't take the tabloids at face value, anticipate problems we missed, and reduce the risk of movement infighting. What we would do differently. For any future campaign with controversy potential, we will engage a broader set of stakeholders in advance, not just the organisations most directly involved. Yeah, I think exactly as I've said, anything which could be controversial, I think it's a good idea to put it out in advance, even if you're not necessarily doing a two-way consultation. Right, if you're an organisation like this and you're trying to launch a campaign, what you don't want is like an endless list of people who have to sign off on everything that changes about the campaign, right? So letting them know rather than asking for permission, I think would be still helpful. And of course, if people give like very strong feedback, no, you definitely shouldn't do that, then you should take this on board. I mean, part of the reason, by the way, that I was quite supportive of the campaign and have been quite supportive of the campaign from an early time is because I knew about it in advance. I didn't know about it loads in advance, but a couple of weeks maybe. And I was briefed on the whole theory of change and approach, and so as soon as I saw it, I understood what they were trying to do. And of course, anybody who didn't understand what they were trying to do and have that context, you see the ostensibly anti-vegan headline, Veganuary campaigner quits to run meat-eating campaign, and you think, what a bastard, right? But it was only because I knew that something like this was coming that I was able to pause for a second and say, okay, this is a donation drive. These tensions could have harmed one of their charities, Humane League, who I presume have the support of a broad church. Yeah, I mean, again, I think they've been like very aggressive in responsibility taking and saying this wasn't any reflection on our charities. Tom said that in our interview. He said in the David Rams interview, they've said, right, I think they've been pretty clear at making that. And, they're not just saying that as well, right? These organisations really didn't know about or endorse the campaign. And there's one thing that they can now say. Maybe they are saying like we should have done more consultation. A downside of that is that you're also maybe increasing the risk for those organisations. Like if there was some organisation that said, yes, we think this is a good idea, go for it, and sort of as FarmKind did, underestimated the backlash and the cost and the downsides, well, then they'd be kind of on the hook as having signed off on it as well, whereas now that's not the case. Again, I don't think you want to be in a position of asking permission from, everyone you've ever had a deal with. But yeah, I guess they haven't necessarily specified whether that would be a consultation or just letting them know. Number 3, internal coordination failures. We had a lapse in internal communication regarding exactly what information was shared with Veganuary. FarmKind's leadership did not at first request to be copied on all emails with Veganuary, which led us to mistakenly assume they had seen the landing page before launch. As a result, Veganuary's feedback on the landing page could only be considered after the campaign was already live. We want to be clear that, as founders, Tom and Aidan take full responsibility for this oversight. What we would do differently: leadership will be copied on all external communications for campaigns of this nature. Okay, so yeah, there's clearly like a miscommunication that they had already seen the website, or an assumption that they had already seen the website when they hadn't. Yeah, there's not much to say about that, right? Internal communication failure. How we responded to concerns. As described above, we made significant mistakes in how we executed this campaign. We heard concerns from a number of fellow animal advocates and EAs, and this gave us pause. We re-evaluated to see if we'd missed anything. The concerns we found most compelling were: 1, if this sparks infighting that could very easily do more harm to animals than this campaign could possibly do good. 2, our recommended charity's existing donor base might mistakenly believe that they endorse the campaign and stop donating as a result. That's what you're saying, AQ. This concern was most acute for the Humane League UK because the campaign was most widely covered in the UK, where Veganuary began and is most widely known. Even though FarmKind only directs donations to THL International, this was not clear to all THL UK donors. 3, that our campaign might reflect negatively on or be taken as endorsed by our funders. Okay, so it's really mainly the infighting point and the reputational impacts on other stakeholders are the main concerns discussed here. We haven't seen, and perhaps we're going to go on to discuss, like to what extent this actually harms veganism or reduces the rate of people going vegan or taking part in Veganuary or anything like that. So it's all quite movements focused. And again, I do think that the campaign, the impact on the 2 key variables in terms of impact on veganism and impact on donations probably is going to be more limited than we might have thought, and certainly that if they have got broader media coverage. So, I mean, that's a little bit boring, I guess, but maybe the impact of this directly on those variables is more limited, and it's more about the impact on the movement. At least that's what's been discussed here. By the way, someone made a very good point in my YouTube comments in saying that basically these campaigns should probably aim to be a bit seasonal, because December's sort of giving season and January is behavior change season in terms of what people are looking to do. So a donation drive in December, which they did a donation drive in December and it was quite successful, makes more sense. But then having something like Veganuary, where it's more so about behavior change, or Veganuary 2.0, then that makes more sense in January, right? Or that would be the idea. In response, we looped Veganuary in more closely, including a number of calls between our founders and Veganuary leadership. We asked their view on whether/how to continue, shared drafts for their feedback, e.g. talking points for interviews and op-eds for submissions, and made amendments accordingly. Looped the Humane League UK on media outreach mentioning THL to mitigate risk to their brand. At their request, we removed their mention from the Daily Mail op-ed pre-publication. Consulted experienced leaders within the farmed animal movement to understand and mitigate infighting risk, in particular A, those within the more radical parts of the community, and B, those who understand the UK context. The purpose of these calls was to understand and mitigate the risk of movement infighting, explain the campaign strategy more candidly than we could do publicly at the time, and solicit a diverse range of informed takes on the question, what would you do right now if you were us? Yeah, that's a good thing to be asking people, I suppose. This must have been a tense couple of weeks when they launched this, honestly. I can definitely see a seasonal campaign working. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, right? You don't normally expect to find an abundance of wisdom in YouTube comments necessarily. You do sometimes, you know. We were heartened to encounter next to no evidence that this had incited infighting so far, but we decided to be careful and continue to take advice on how to mitigate the risk of that going forward, given the stakes. Next to no evidence this incited infighting so far. Okay. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. There's going to be such disperse and difficult to define and quantify kind of thing. I mean, clearly there's been a lot of arguing about this campaign. I don't know if you would call that infighting, though. I think, you know, like I say, I think a lot of it has been super productive. So in terms of like actually, you know, old factions being reawakened and decrying each other and undermining each other's campaigns and wasting resources on doing that, I don't think so. I don't know of any. I haven't looked for any, but good to note that that wasn't evidence here as well. We're going to read the comments. Someone said the comments are good, so you have to check that out. Took an interview on a vegan YouTube channel to explain our intentions directly. Oh, this is going to be David Rams, isn't it? Yeah. 2 interviews on vegan YouTube channels, really, but whatever. I'm just kidding. This was posted like the same day, I guess, or the day after we did our interview, even so. Taking an interview on a vegan YouTube channel, explain our intentions directly to this specific audience, as they were the group most likely to take issue with our approach. While we knew the chance... Oh, that's interesting. Well, vegans being the group. I mean, yeah, I suppose so. While we knew the chance of winning people over was very low, we hoped that if this audience understood that we have no qualms with veganuary and see ourselves as sharing their goals, it might mitigate the risk of sparking infighting. Yeah, that makes sense. The chances of winning people over was very low. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, there's nothing really to gain as a vegan by supporting this, right? Because you can, hey Po, good to see you, appreciate you dropping in. Yeah, because you can always just do both. So that's sort of the obvious response from a vegan perspective. But yeah, okay, that was with the aim of kind of signaling against infighting more broadly, and that's the same with my Jane Land conversation as well. And with my FarmKind conversation, where they're both very reconciliatory and making it clear that they were not at odds with each other as they might have been. Further made changes to websites such as adding the disclaimer, our recommended charities did not provide support for FarmKind's campaign. FarmKind's recommendations of these charities should not be taken as endorsement by them of any of FarmKind's activities, and editing the landing page to soften language that advocates found most disparaging. Yeah, so we saw the changes to Can't Give Up Meat. It's no longer at forgetveganuary.com. Guess we have fewer things over here than we used to. I wonder what else was there and got cut. And I think, yeah, I mean, Tom said to me, everything we have on there is probably defensible at this point. Annoyed friends and family, that probably is empirically true to some extent, on average, right? Felt guilty for wanting meat. Yeah, I mean, again, it is what it is, right? It's probably also correct. Gave up favorite food, yeah. Checked every ingredient, yeah. Had to plan every meal. Yeah, I mean, that's the only one that you could take a little bit of exception with, I guess. But probably if you're a new vegan or doing veganuary, then yeah, maybe. I eat a lot of the same shit all the time, to be honest. I eat very plain stuff often. If left to my own devices, I have pretty much just like pasta and protein shakes. But fortunately, my wife is a very good cook, and makes it a bit more interesting. Makes it a bit more interesting. But when she goes away, I'm living on just the gruel that I can make in between sitting at my computer. On personal attacks, we want to address something that shouldn't need saying but does. A number of individuals directed personal attacks at our head of special projects, Tony Vanelli, who has dedicated decades of her life to campaigning for farmed animals. There's an important distinction between critiquing strategies or campaigns, which is how movements improve, and attacking the people behind them. The former is legitimate and welcome. The latter is neither acceptable nor constructive. Yeah, I think that's true. And a lot of the lay commentary, a lot of the social media comments and the Daily Mail comments were saying this kind of thing, like very cynical, oh, she's just doing it for the money, which I don't know, like the whole point of this is that animal charities don't have very much money. She's certainly not being paid as well as she could to do some other job, I'm sure. She said that she took a pay cut to go to FarmKind from Veganuary. So... yeah, I don't think that. But of course, it's more disheartening when you see those kind of personal attacks from within the movement. I think obviously that's very unhelpful. It's deep as well if you're somebody who has been in the movement for 3 decades and has worked in different organizations, has like an extensive social network in this area, She's been at it. She's been in these communities longer than I've been alive. So there's really... Oh, hey, look, first Chris Bryant mention. All right, let's get there. I'm like Trump when he only recognizes his own name in documents that he has to read. Results. In addition to the early tabloid coverage as hoped, we landed national TV coverage on GP News and radio coverage on LBC and an op-ed in the Daily Mail, where we got to say our core message more clearly and to a larger audience. However, to moderate the risk of inciting infighting, we leaned... Pardon me, I can't read today. To moderate the risk of inciting infighting, we leaned out of controversy. That is not easy to say. Try saying inciting infighting 10 times. We'll see. As a result of this more mild-mannered approach, the LBC radio interview wasn't aired. This change in approach lost us momentum in the media and meant we stood little chance of landing the North Star coverage like Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, if you're watching, I don't know if you're a vegan 2.0. I sort of doubt it. But if you are one of the 10 people in my YouTube chat right now, get them on. FarmKind versus Veganuary debate. And it'll all be worth it. There's a chance. There's a chance he's one of the 10. Piers Morgan in chat? Any Piers Morgans in chat? Kind of true, Oppenheimer. Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't personal in the same way, but yeah, someone in my chat said it's not. It's also not acceptable or constructive for the way that they disparage veganism and Veganuary. True, you're not wrong. In addition, okay, yeah, we read this. We think that on balance, this was the right call, given the risks raised, but we could be wrong about this. For example, any damage to the movement might already have been done, and we simply may have given up the potential upside. The campaign, that's not an encouraging sentence but before the Chris Bryant mention, is it? The campaign also sparked significant commentary on online channels aimed primarily at vegans and animal advocates. Chris Bryant, forget Veganuary, is Tony Vanilla cooking or she cooked? Top of the list. Aiden Kankyoku, constructive infighting. Is this not what we read? Yes, it is. We read that. Vegan Horizon, Veganuary is under attack. So I think this person commented on one of my posts recently. Maybe we'll read this sometime. Is this passé now? This was on the 2nd of Jan. Maybe we're a bit late for that. Comments in the margin, forget FarmKind, how EA goes off the rails. Okay. Unnatural Vegan, forget Veganuary? Question mark. Forgetfarmkind.com. We recommend checking this one out. It's well executed and funny. All right, there you go. We got a little bit of endorsement from the FarmKind team for forgetfarmkind.com. The guy who made this was in my chat at some point. Wait, is this one of you guys in here now? The person who made that was certainly was in my chat at some point. And Aiden Kankyoku, sorry. Vegans are monks, we need a role for lay people. We read that as well. I enjoyed those, what's it called? What does it call it? Sandcastles blogs. I enjoyed that. Very well written, very smart guy. And this, by the way, this is another person who knew about the campaign beforehand, I think, because this is someone who was involved in that Pax Fauna research. So maybe they had an idea of the campaign beforehand as well. I mean, I really think that was, I could have taken it very differently if I didn't know before that news coverage came out what they were trying to do. There's some really thought-provoking and valuable discourse in here, and so long as it doesn't lead to infighting, we're glad to see it. This discourse seems to have rallied many advocates around Veganuary, which we're glad for, particularly given they face criticism from within the vegan community itself. Interesting. Maybe we'll look at that another time. As of the 22nd of January, we estimate donations generated by this as $16,692 using the most conservative attribution logic, and $59,262 by less conservative logic. Let's see the note there. Oh boy. Unlike many of our fundraising efforts which involve matching codes that make it easy to precisely identify donations, this one is harder. We estimated donations attributable to this campaign by looking at donations that A, occurred after the first news coverage and before January 18th. I don't know if it's necessarily fair to cut it off at Jan 18th. I guess this is just when they did the analysis, right? Oh, as of 22nd of January. Okay, well. B came from donor who had never donated through our platform before. Fair enough. C, weren't attributable to any other source, i.e. they didn't use a matching code and they didn't choose one of our other campaign when answering the questions, where did you come across FarmKind question in the optional post-donation survey. Our less conservative estimate counted all donations meeting these three requirements. Okay. I mean, it seems, I don't know if it's, I guess if they have now stopped doing media about it, they can kind of call time on things attributable to that going forward. But even then, not really, because those media pieces which exist will continue to exist, right? And when and if people post them as sort of anti-vegan fodder, that will each time become an opportunity for more people to discover effective donations as a path forward. So I guess this is as of this date, and it will continue to increase over time. But I mean, yeah, there's no sugarcoating at the end of the day. It's much less than they were aiming to raise. Our less conservative estimate counted all donations meeting these three requirements. Our conservative estimate only counted donations which either A, were made through the offset calculator widget, B, said they heard of us in a news article, or C, donated a very specific number that very likely came from our calculator, e.g. $209. We manually excluded 10 donations for which we have evidence that they weren't caused by this campaign. If you're wondering why we don't just look at donations made through the offset calculator widget, the answer is that we know from our donor interviews that many, likely most, people who discover us through the calculator complete their donation through our standard donation widget. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, that was probably more detail than we really needed there. But actually, I don't know. I think that is quite conservative logic. And well, the main thing is that it's short term. You know, it's possible that somebody comes across this article and goes, "Wow, what a fantastic idea," and gives $1 million. Right? Doesn't like it's possible. It's not necessarily likely. But the point is, these articles still exist, and so to the extent they still think this offsetting and donating as a priority strategy is a good thing, then this, you know, provides a path for people to still find that. I was talking to a couple of pals last night, and neither of them had like remembered seeing the Veganuary campaigner leaves kind of headline. So I do think it's probably less widespread or memorable in the long term than we might have feared if you're seeing it as anti-vegan. But yeah, I mean, it is existing, right? And it's having whatever effect it's having on an ongoing basis rather than being called. Anyway. Probably lower than it would have been and we'd not pulled back from controversy mid-campaign. This translates to a 0.82 to 3.27 gross funding multiplier. This doesn't include future donations that these donors might initiate, or any future podcast interviews or other coverage that this campaign might unlock. Fair enough. It also doesn't include additional donations to Veganuary that this campaign might have caused. We observed a number of cases of people on social media claiming they were going to donate to Veganuary because of this. We were one of them. Whilst this is more donations than resulted from any news coverages we've previously received, we do not consider this an exciting result. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they've clarified that they wouldn't have expected many donations from the coverage that they had alone. And that basically they were kind of unable to get the broader coverage that they were hoping for and anticipating that most of the donations would come from. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty disappointing total at this stage. Could still increase in the future, but it's also reasonable to think that you know, most of it's going to come in the time when that news goes live. Even with posting things on YouTube, it's always like stuff gets benefited in the algorithm for being new, mainly. Sometimes you'll see videos that you posted a long time ago and have been flat on views for a long time start to go up again as the algorithm picks them up. And some you get a consistent people finding them over time through search or whatever. But most videos that you'll post, and this will be the same, you know, YouTube shows it very kind of graphically and compellingly, but it's going to be the same on any social media platform. Most of the engagement is in the first day or 2 days. And then after that is old news. So, I mean, that's maybe kind of obvious to some people, but I mean, looking at that and thinking, okay, there's a benefit to posting all the time, posting every day. Like I've been posting Veganuary 2.0 videos every day, shorts, and that keeps you constantly, something of yours is new and going to show up in the algo, right? Anyway. And lives, of course, like, you know, you can't beat live. FAQs, are you anti-vegan? Oh, okay, here's the question that somebody was asking in chat. No, FarmKind's co-founders are both vegan, and we believe veganism is a powerful tool for helping farmed animals. We want Veganuary to succeed in driving diet change. However, even though broad public opposition to factory farming is high, rates of veganism have remained stubbornly flat. That might be a Bryant Research. Okay, Sentience Institute, Faunaletics. All right, well. Good side brand research there as well. Never mind. Won't hold it against him. Forgotten it already. Rates of veganism have remained stubbornly flat. In the US, for example, polling finds the number has remained roughly the same since 2012, and in the UK since at least 2019. We believe we need to provide more options and lower the barrier for entry for the vast majority of people who are not currently vegan so they can start helping. Donating is one such option. Recent research from Rethink Priorities finds that diet change is perceived as significantly more difficult than donating and equally impactful. They're saying it is equally impactful or it's perceived as equally impactful. I think they're saying perceived. Donating is actually going to be more impactful for the most part. One way to think about this is that each vegan is worth a certain amount of dollars per year in terms of the animals that they're not eating, right? That's like equivalent donations could spare as many animals as one vegan. And I think that number is lower than any of us might think. So it's not necessarily that creating vegans costs that much, but it's that much worth of animals that one vegan doesn't eat versus can be helped by effective donations, and it's going to be a pretty modest sum. So donating really is a way to supercharge the whole thing. And I agree with what they're saying as well about the barrier to entry, right? It's very, very tempting for particularly activist circles to have veganism as a barrier to entry or the minimum, people say that's the moral baseline, right? I do think that if you can extract donations from people who are not willing to go vegan, then obviously that's a much bigger group of people. So yeah, I remain sympathetic to the theory of change, even though this execution clearly could have been better. It's interesting that this entire reflection was really about the infighting and the sort of reputational risk to other stakeholders. And maybe they're going to answer this in the FAQs, but they haven't really said anything about is this going to, reduce the number of people going vegan or reduce, hurt animals through kind of signaling that consuming animals is okay or something like that. I think the cool thing is that they do think that it is true that you can help more animals by donating than you can by being vegan. And if that is true, then someone being exposed to their whole message on that topic, they don't really have anything to apologize for, right? Maybe they'll address it. Maybe they're addressing it here in this section. Meanwhile, donating has some advantages as a way to help fix this problem. Uncapped upside. You can only stop eating the amount of meat you currently eat, so your impact is capped. There's no theoretical limit to the good you can do by donating. Yep. I mean, obviously, most people have a limited amount that they can practically donate, but yeah, in theory, right? Reparations. Diet change can't help the animals you'd already eaten before making the change. Donating can't help those specific animals either, but it can allow you to go beyond stopping causing harm and pay for a form of reparations, where you do an amount of good for animals commensurate with your past harms as well. Interesting framing. Yeah, I guess there's kind of... I can see how that could be compelling, right? However many years you were not vegan, you might want to retrospectively offset that, right? Sustainability. Sadly, as an article criticising our campaign points out, diet changes have high dropout rates. Conversely, it is low friction to maintain an automatic monthly donation. We see strong retention of our monthly donors, and of course, cancelling your monthly donation doesn't mean you don't continue to donate to help farmed animals through FarmKind or elsewhere. Pardon me, cancelling your monthly donation doesn't mean you don't continue to... I mean, probably it does mean that you don't continue through FarmKind, right? If you cancel. But elsewhere, okay. So this is what? Eligible donors. I don't understand how they're getting that. So this is the implied lifetime of donors that they were referencing before, somewhere between 2 and 3 years. This is retention rate. I don't know. I don't quite understand the eligible donors thing. Why is it going down as the months go up? Oh, I see. So this is their current number of donors. I don't understand why they would do it that way around. All right. Well, anyway, they have high retention rates is the point. To summarize, veganism good. Other ways of helping animals also good. Giving people multiple options makes it more likely that they pick one and take their first step on what we hope will be a lifelong journey of increasingly ambitious action for animals. Oh, here we go. This is what I was just saying, wasn't it? Aren't you concerned about dissuading people from being vegan? We recognise that many people, including us, have a gut-level negative reaction to the campaign's framing, but we are not the target audience, and our personal reactions aren't strong evidence about the campaign's impact on the people it was designed to influence. We encourage critics to distinguish between "I personally dislike this" and "I believe this will be net negative for animals." The former is expected and largely irrelevant. The latter is important. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And I think this is another reason that I found it quite intuitive to defend the campaign, because I knew that the expected reaction for a vegan would be, negative emotion of some form. And I wasn't put off from supporting the campaign when a lot of people were disagreeing with me about it, again, because I expected that. It's almost like, you expect meatheads to have their excuses. And once you know about cognitive dissonance and motivated reasoning and why people interact with the topic that way, you don't find it off-putting to your own veganism for people giving silly excuses, right? You just think, okay, this is the expected interaction with this. But yeah, distinguish between "I personally dislike this" and "I believe this will be net negative for animals." Former is expected and largely irrelevant. The latter is important. All right, so are we concerned about dissuading people from going vegan? Let's see. We take the possibility of dissuading people from being vegan very seriously, but we view the actual risks as low and far outweighed by the benefits. The rate and trend of veganism over time shows that most people aren't vegan and aren't about to be. Most individuals hold deeply entrenched views regarding their consumption of animal products, whereas their views on whether or where to donate are often much more flexible. We believe the potential upside of reaching the non-vegan majority, many of whom may be hearing for the first time that they can still take significant action against factory farming, far outweighs the risk of the small minority of diet swing voters. Yeah, that's an interesting framing. We believe this is true even considering the risk of people reading the headline and not the message about donating. We find it hard to believe that a single provocative headline would materially shift someone's long-term moral or dietary convictions. If a swing eater claimed to be swayed by one headline, we're sceptical that they were seriously considering diet change in the first place. After all, if individual messages were capable of easily changing dietary choices, we would expect to see far more progress in traditional vegan outreach over the past several decades. Kind of true. I mean, I agree that headline alone wouldn't be enough to swing somebody. And I hear what they're saying as well, that it's mostly, it's right-wing outlets, it's Telegraph readers, it's people who are not about to go vegan anyway, for the most part. But I think there can be a cumulative effect of these things on people who are not vegan and people who are vegan. So it's possible also that some vegans, many of, again, the vegan community is the main place where this has been picked up. Oh, by the way, Chris, with the $20 or $40 super chat to a streamer, I decided to donate 5 to him. Are people donating super chats? I should be able to see that. Also, do I only allow 20 or 40? That's not what we want. Damn, the default. Okay, oh, it looks like it goes down to 1. Okay, that's good. I never should be able to see these. I only just got monetized, so super chats are very new for me. It worked way better than I expected. He ended up talking for 2 solid minutes in front of 900 people about how barbaric we are and how we should have invented lab-grown meat that waves. Wow, okay, nice. That's awesome. Oh, okay, you donated to a non-vegan streamer who ended up speaking to a lot of it. That's banging. Yeah, that's really, really cool. I think that that's probably a pretty good... It's probably pretty good leverage, isn't it? Trying to one-guy streamers. Trying to one-guy big streamers. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. A super chat especially. Yeah, I got you, Poe. A super chat especially, you can influence the discourse, especially if there's a lot of people in there. Yeah, really, really cool. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, so I think there's maybe like a cumulative effect of all the headlines effect missing from this analysis, I guess. We want to emphasize that we could be wrong about this. We remain open to the possibility that our message might drive more people to stop being vegan than to donate, and if we had reason to suspect that this risk was high, we would respond accordingly. However, we don't think that the prima facie case for this risk is strong, given what is already known about public attitudes to veganism and diet change. Okay, yeah, so they're appealing to the rate and trend of veganism over time, which I think is fair. Most people hold deeply entrenched views, and then there's a small number of swing voters or swing eaters. And they're unlikely to be swayed by a single headline like that, although maybe there's some cumulative effect going on. Oh, nice. Was that my recommendation, Poe? Nice. Who did you give to, out of interest? We agree with those who argue that ending factory farming in the long term may require a substantial shift toward veganism and widespread positive public sentiment. However, we believe that a typical tabloid reader's perception of veganism is far more entrenched than their views on whether to donate to charities working to reform an inhumane industry. Donating funds things like alternative proteins, institutional meat reduction, and corporate campaigns. We believe that funding these interventions helps change the food environment such that veganism is more convenient, relatively cheaper, and more normal, natural, and nice, making veganism more socially acceptable and sustainable for the average person later on. Yes, they're sort of playing the long game. This is something that they said in the David Rams interview. As an aside, we suspect that donating may be a promising on-ramp to diet change in the long term. Our actions aren't simply downstream of beliefs. Our actions can change our beliefs. Forthcoming research from Samantha Cassier supports the view that getting people to take even trivially small actions for farmed animals can increase their moral sympathy towards them 6 months later. Wow. A similar phenomenon is often at play when people who change their diet for non-moral reasons later become convinced by the moral argument. Once we start taking action on an issue like factory farming, we have less reason to avoid thinking about it and less dissonance in seeing ourselves differently, e.g. as pro-animal. That makes us more open to further actions. We discuss this further here. Yeah, so this is like the moral consistency effect that I have spoken about on this topic. It's kind of assumed that there's a moral licensing effect and that people are going to be less likely to go vegan. But it could also be the opposite, right? People start to donate, then maybe they actually become more likely to go vegan later. Have you measured whether you're dissuading people from being vegan or supporting animal advocacy? Oh boy. We did not prepare this measurement in advance because, as explained above, we think this risk is likely to be low. However, we do take the risk seriously, and so we are talking with MEL advisors like the Mission Motor, this measurement of evaluation and learning, I guess, seeking their advice on whether there is a right-sized way to measure this going forward. It's worth noting that we have not yet encouraged a vegan advocacy organisation that systematically measures whether its messaging might inadvertently dissuade people from or hurt their perceptions of veganism or other animal advocacy, nor have we seen anyone calling for them to do so. While the evidence on backfire effects in advocacy is often mixed and highly context dependent, there are certainly reasons to worry that some go vegan messaging could be counterproductive. Interesting. Okay, so they're talking, maybe even people doing the diet change advocacy are hurting diet change. Is the well, they're saying it nicer than I just said it. Potential for denial. The meat paradox suggests a tension between one person's care for animals and their consumption of them. Some psychological models suggest that when a high barrier dietary change is presented as the only resolution, individuals may manage the resulting cognitive dissonance by rationalizing their habits or minimizing the perceived suffering of animals. Yeah, I mean, I often say this is only half the story, but they're saying a high barrier dietary change. When a high barrier dietary change is presented as the only resolution. Perceived inefficacy. When advocacy focuses on the consumer frame and individual boycotts, brackets veganism, it may lead to a sense of learned helplessness. If individuals believe that their personal dietary choices are the only lever for change, but perceive that the rest of the world will continue as usual, they may conclude that the problem is unsolvable. This can lead to despair and disengagement rather than action. Damn, that's a really good point. So perceived inefficacy, yeah, and this is about us as vegans and animal advocates and our outlook and our intentions. If you think that the only way to solve this is everybody going vegan and that's not going to happen, well then, yeah, obviously that's very demotivating and maybe people leave the movement because of that. So this is, yeah, it's about other routes of change. Psychological reactants. Direct moral commands are often perceived as threats to personal autonomy and identity. This can trigger a boomerang effect where individuals reassert their freedom by doubling down on the criticised behaviour or developing active hostility towards the messenger. A recent experimental study found that forceful admonitions to stop eating meat for health reasons cause participants to pay more attention to and even seek out meat-related information, demonstrating how reactants can bias attention toward the very behaviour being discouraged. Seek out meat-related information. I mean, pro-meat information, maybe? I'm not sure. All right, well, whatever. It's meant to be some outcome about liking meat more. This defiance may be a significant driver of the animosity some feel towards vegans and, by association, animal advocates. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's basically correct. As a movement, we should be consistent in our demands for empirical rigour. Just as FarmKind should put our assumptions under the microscope, we believe it is equally important to test the assumption that typical vegan advocacy is net positive. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good point, and it does make you think about doing things effectively even within vegan advocacy, which is not typically what effective animal advocates are interested in, just because there's very much this institutional focus and, welfare policies and corporate campaigns and institutional diet change campaigns. So as a result, vegan advocacy specifically is a little bit less, an EA domain. There could well be net negative vegan campaigns. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but it's certainly possible. Why not just do something much more nuanced? Well, we know the answer to this, don't we? The mainstream media rarely provides a platform for nuance. We consider various media hooks and have experimented with less controversial approaches, both independently and with PR agency support. They failed to gain significant traction. Yeah, this is what they were telling us about the bring a dog to the protest and all that kind of stuff that they did, which didn't get much uptake. When we start talking about factory farming, the script in people's minds is that we're asking them to change their diet, so they stop listening. We used to get comments like, "I'm not going vegan, I love bacon too much," on videos where we weren't talking about veganism at all. To reach many people, we need to make it explicitly clear that we're not asking them to go vegan. Why did you pitch to tabloids and right-wing outlets? As mentioned earlier, the aim was to cause outlets that normally are silent on the issue of factory farming and critical of veganuary, see here, here and here, to have a more productive conversation about which action people should choose to combat factory farming this year, instead of whether to do anything about it at all. This tabloid coverage wasn't expected to drive significant donations directly, but to springboard us to a major TV appearance. For context, last year's Dwarkesh podcast raised over $2.5 million. A single high-profile media hit can be transformative. Our target was something like Piers Morgan. As mentioned earlier, we pivoted mid-campaign to mitigate infighting risk, and this more mild-mannered approach caused our GB News interview to go unuploaded. Oh, I see. Okay, that's why we were watching in a Google Drive link, hey? And our LBC interview to go unaired, killing our momentum towards that goal. So they kind of had to maintain the controversial approach a little bit more to get that further media coverage. We didn't pitch outlets like Guardian because they typically write positive stories about veganuary, e.g. these two this year, which we had no interest in co-opting. Conclusion. We ran a provocative campaign that generated significant controversy and modest donations. We made real mistakes in execution, particularly around stakeholder consultation, and are genuinely sorry for any distress this caused to veganuary staff and others who felt blindsided. We still believe that experimenting with ways to mobilise the non-vegan majority is important and underexplored. When people learn that they can start taking meaningful action for farmed animals without overhauling their diet, doors open that would otherwise stay closed. We'll continue pursuing that goal with better coordination next time. If you've read this far, thank you for hearing us out. Well, there we go. These are the footnotes. We read the ones that we're interested in. We still believe that experimenting with most mobilised and non-vegan majority is important and underexplored. Yeah, I mean, I agree with this. And maybe this will continue to exist as something that drives people that way. But someone said the comments are good on this. So let's have a look at the comments. Top comment, Wendy Matthews, Veganuary CEO. We particularly empathise with the perspective of Veganuary staff and community members. We acknowledge that the campaign may have been deeply demotivating to those working on diet change, and we are sorry. Thank you for saying this, Tom and Aidan. Ultimately, we're all here because we believe there's a better path forward for our food system, even if we disagree on the best strategy to achieve it. In the spirit of minimising further infighting risk, I want to confirm that this summary of our communications fairly reflects the sequence of events. Veganuary and FarmKind will continue reflecting on what happened together behind the scenes, and my hope is that we can now collectively shift focus away from internal process challenges and towards the more productive conversation about execution and overall impact. Onward from here. You got to say well done to Veganuary for very positive and constructive engagement throughout all of this. I think that other people have been much more upset on their behalf, at least in public, than they have been. And I mean, somebody put the infighting thing on my radar quite early on, or a number of people did, really. And I think that subsequently, certainly I was, and it seems from other communication that people have been kind of very wary of that. Somebody else says, I think the biggest problem with FarmKind's campaign is it was fundamentally manipulative and insincere. As I read it, the grand plan here was to pretend to trash Veganuary to bait, your words, a lot of media engagement around this kayfabe controversy and parlay this into a marquee presentation where the harvested eyeballs discover we're actually all friends here. Let us pitch you on different ways of helping animals. The wider world tends to have allergic reactions to controlled opposition, audience, plant and related stunts, and so should we. I confess the fact that this one backfired in large part because you tricked too many people, including your allies, too well strikes me as a fitting comeuppance. Well, I don't know. Yeah, there's a bit of irony, isn't there? Because it did end up being more of an argument than kayfabe. I mean, the wider world tends to have allergic reaction to controlled opposition, audience, plants, related stunts. Should we? Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. Obviously, ideally, people don't know about it, right? Nick Lang, I agree with your statement in its entirety, even the fitting comeuppance bit, but I don't like the tone because it feels a little vindictive and mean to me. FarmKind were genuinely trying to help animals here, maybe messed up, and I think you could perhaps be a little nicer while making your well-articulated, very good point. It's like typically lovely people in the EA community, right? I don't think we need to read all of the back and forth necessarily. MHR, you mentioned survey research by Rethink Priorities a couple of times in the post. However, the survey found that the donation message, a pure pitch to donate, was rated as more compelling than the diet distancing message, a pitch to donate that specifically called out that one doesn't need to go vegan to help animals. The difference in effect sizes was small, but I'm skeptical that the survey really supports the theory of change you were going for here. Interesting. The donation message was rated as more compelling than the diet distancing message. Is there other outcome measures in this study, or is the rating as compelling the main thing? How they were perceived. Effect size estimates demonstrate. Rated more compelling than the diet change. Okay. Were they asked to take any action? Perceived impact. Okay, to perceived impact of donating and diet change. This is the other thing which I was going to read, which I guess I'm not going to read in detail, and therefore don't have the context of what the conditions were or whatever. Comparing actions within. Okay, so it's perceived impact. How compelling the thing was, and then the perceived impact of each. I guess they weren't asked to do anything. Perceived impact. Perceived impact. Diet change is harder than donating. The messages do not affect them. Okay, so perceived impact, perceived difficulty. That difficulty as well. Yeah. I will read this in more detail at some point. I'm kind of skimming it now because we're doing the comments, but. Oh, interest in donating or diet change. Okay. Both the diet distancing and the donation messages produce very small increases in the reported interest in making donations in the near future with no reliable differences between them. Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, this is one of the empirical things that wanted testing here. And I have to say, I do find this surprising that the diet distancing message where you say you don't have to be vegan, you can donate, did not result in more donations or donation interest, I guess is the measure, than just the donation message. That'll be a fairly big thing that my intuitions would have been wrong about if that's the case. Interest in diet change. So, and what did they say about that? Donation message also increased reported interest in diet change. Okay, so that's this. I don't know what the different tiers are. Again, I haven't read the whole thing. So this is one of those things. The donation was significantly higher than the control, and then the diet distancing was not significantly different from either. So that suggests that something like Forget Veganuary, well, it's no significant difference, right? But that suggests that relative to the control, there's actually a small, not significant increase in interest in diet change, which again is a bit counterintuitive. Sorry, I should be looking at Gen Pop. There's the same pattern though. Reported interest in donating. All right, well, maybe we'll read this in full another time, hey? Receive more information about animal welfare donations. No difference. I mean, that doesn't look great. I'm certainly open to revising my thoughts on the theory of change here. All right. This one looks like a nicer, more supportive comment. Personally, I admire your integrity and willingness to write this post despite very strong attacks, not constructive criticism. You endured for thinking outside the box and trying something more risky, which marketing specialists in commercial markets do all the time. This point, I think, I agree with that first part. I like that they have been risk-taking, and I like that they've been aggressively taking responsibility for everything, which, yeah. This point, I think, is missed. In marketing, controversial campaigns are very common. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they totally fail. It's normal. One of the most successful campaigns in Poland is one big grocery chain, Lidl, fighting with another big chain, Biedronka. Never heard of that. Biedronka. Or I think there is this exchange between two car brands where one disses the other in commercials. You literally wanted to try a classic marketing strategy that works for the richest brands in the world. I don't think there's anything wrong with the TOC to start with. Theory of change, not terms and conditions. Yes. I mean, it's a little bit different, arguably, in a charitable context where, obviously, in a commercial context, the assumption is that there's competition, and so dissing each other and fighting each other in that way is kind of expected and fine and normal. So I don't know if it's a perfect analogy, but we're talking about marketing there, which, fair enough. I also don't think you could predict how big the wave of criticism will be. I have been in the animal movement for 25 years, 25 of those vegan as well, and yet I thought the intentions behind this campaign would be much clearer to fellow advocates. It turned out that our community was absolutely not ready for something like that, despite, as I said, it being a classic marketing strategy, and despite the goal being to help animals via counterfactual donations that would not otherwise happen without this specific campaign, potentially coming from non-vegans. I think the momentum for this campaign was stolen from you, so you could never really finish with the TOC and see whether it would have been successful if you were not blocked by the movement. You getting donations is very interesting. As James mentions here, would this not suggest that there are some people who actually decided to donate because of the campaign? But the result obviously is much less than you probably had in mind. Still, it seems like you have not lost any money, and there might be some positive effects for veganuary as well. I agree the planning could be better, but it seems to me that with 3.3 million raised in 2025, a 2.94x counterfactual multiplier and 13.27x non-counterfactual, FarmKind is really in a good position to take risks and make mistakes. Well, this is very positive here. This is the most bullish on this strategy that I've seen, other than myself, basically. So there you go. That's expanded my Overton window, and this is quite, fairly well upvoted as well. I kind of agree. I'm a little surprised that more people didn't get it and understand what they were trying to do. A lot of people were speculating, are these vegans behind this campaign? What are they doing? They're throwing veganism under the bus and so on. I'm not sure about this marketing analogy that she's given in the first part, but certainly to me it was clear what they were going for. Although, it has to be said, this is a little bit damning of some of my assumptions, it seems. I'm going to have to read this in full sometime, but we're not doing that now. But okay, nice to see somebody else out there being very supportive. And yeah, at the same time, this person's saying, obviously, this did not raise as much as hoped, and, works in theory, but didn't go so much in practice. Yeah, thanks, Oppenheimer. I appreciate you turning me on to the comments, because it's always where the best discourse is, inevitably. Thanks for posting an update about the outcomes and your reflections. It sounds like the right lesson that it would be to that it would be good, pardon me, to consult more widely in the movement before trying similarly risky approaches. I just wanted to ask a somewhat technical question about the estimate of the amount raised. We read this. This doesn't sound like it takes into account the, I guess, there would have been some amount donated through FarmKind without the campaign, i.e. donations from new donors in that period not indicated as being linked to a campaign. What effect would subtracting this background donation rate have, e.g. if it were based on a representative recent period of similar length, maybe from October to November or something, if Christmas distorts things? So this accounts for in a way I've not understood. Yeah, it's very difficult because they also had the Lewis Bollard thing in September spilling into October, I believe, or maybe August spilling into September. But they had a couple of months there where it was much, much higher than any other month on record. And then it seemed that what I'm guessing is then recurring donations from the Lewis Bollard appearance, because their October and November were also, much higher than previous years as well. They did say that they discounted existing donors, but yeah, this person's talking about like other new donors that might have been not accounted for. Which is a fair question. Nick Lang again. Thanks for this great analysis. I'm impressed by FarmKind's quick response to this. Yeah, I have to say I'm pretty impressed by their quick response as well. They did change things on the fly. Again, I guess they're saying they've pivoted the media direction now. And they're not even kind of looking for bigger media. So they have cool time on it in that sense. Knowing the reasoning behind helps me better understand what you're trying to do. Although I still think it wasn't a good campaign, I think it's good that you are trying to innovate approaches to both capturing media attention and communicating about the best ways to help animals. I think it matters and signals integrity that you're both vegan too. This should help more hard love animal rights campaigners. What? Hardline, it must be. Animal rights campaigners, that you really are in their side and not trying to undermine them. All the best for future campaigns. Don't let it scare you off. Staying bold and innovative in the future. Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of people in my audience have found that information very relevant. It is certainly, they've done the costly signalling, as that blog post said. They're in the gang. There's a downvoted comment here. Should we read the downvoted ones? Well, they've gone on to write quite a lot more as well. Is this going to be worth reading or no? All right, I get it. All right, let's go on then. Let's read the downvoted one. This might be the best one yet. This person got 1 tick and 8 crosses, and they have a -3 updo score. The theory of change here just makes no sense to me, and even if it did, FarmKind took it much further than would be necessary if forget about veganism and look me in my eyes as I talked about farmed animal suffering was the idea. Okay. Who is so willing to entertain? Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. Where's the first punctuation in this? I haven't seen a full stop yet. There's one, but it's only at the end of the word etc. And it's followed by and. This is all once. Okay, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm going to read that. If you had wanted me to read their response from the founder, yeah. Maybe I'll read the response. If I read the response, I have to read. All right, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. Steel yourselves. We're in this now. Longest sentence ever written. It's genuinely all one sentence. Yeah, true, Oppenheimer. At least you know it's not AI when it's like this. That's very true. I prefer it was, honestly. who is so willing to entertain radical pro-animal positions and remember that to basically every person outside of the animal welfare movement, I am personally prepared to donate money to improve the welfare of farmed animals is extremely radical and is way less common than a position of I should take my money off of treating animals as badly as I have in order to make money / eat my favourite foods, that they would be run over by arguments to donate from compassion for animals, but has seen a red line at changing their eating habits, that any discussion of the matter doesn't just ignore diet change, but even fails to deride it, and those advocating for it. Brackets, I recall references to activists trying to trick you into going vegan, would be dead on arrival. This would be a great place for a full stop, wouldn't it? And this subject who is willing to radically change their position on their responsibility towards animal welfare because they find the suffering of farmed animals to be a serious tragedy worthy of their donations, would be enthused by campaigns about people quitting veganism, eating a whole goat, etc. And this person would never have gone vegan, so they exist in this very narrow, I believe, imaginary band of concern where they're moved by compassion for animals and personal will to commit regular money to offset their animal consumption, but they would not have gone vegan anyways. So we had to stab that idea in front of them before they'd even listen to us about the issue of farmed animal welfare. So they're saying that this is a very small part of the Venn diagram, basically, where these cross over. Someone who is willing to donate and who's not willing to go vegan. I mean, I disagree with that. Who is this person who is so allergic to veganism that they're drawn to campaigns that crudely deride it and its adherents and revel in imagery of meat eating and quitting veganism, but also feels exceptional compassion for farmed animals and is willing to make a durable commitment to donate money to animal activists, most of whom are the much-hated vegans, to help them? I don't think a large target audience of this kind exists, certainly not enough to offset the negative impact of promoting hatred and abandonment of the animal welfare movement's most visible, durable, proven impactful form and identity. And there will be no end to factory farming without the vegan movement. The same people who thumbs up at Forget Veganuary will give 2 thumbs up to the next person who tells them to forget offset donations, and there's a long line of people ready to say that. Okay, well... Aiden Alexander said also, okay, James Oz says, is this not some evidence that the target audience exists? I mean, yes, they did raise some money. Also, our thousands of donors over the past 12 months, many of them email us expressing that our compassion calculator is exactly what they're looking for, and or that they've been put off by other animal advocates in the past and find our website refreshing. Well, there you go. I don't know if it was worth reading that. We're certainly not reading the other follow-ups. Right. Damn. My OBS saying there's 0 people here. Is that right? We were on like 6 before we read that long comment, but now we've lost them all. Goodness me. Okay, you know what? YouTube page still says 5 watching, so I'm going to assume there's at least a couple of people here. Well, there we go. That was the new FarmKind post. Reflections on the campaign, January 23rd. And I mean, I guess that they have called time on it. They've pulled back from the controversial framing. Oh, nice, Oppenheimer. Thank you. I appreciate you. Literally on my OBS says concurrent 0. I was like, I shouldn't have read that. Yeah, they've called time on the campaign. They're not going to push for further media with this framing or as part of this campaign. But notable, you know, they're standing by the theory of change of being able to get something from non-vegans. I think that's a really important thing that we need to learn how to do, and have other asks that we can have of people who are not willing to go vegan. I mean, again, that's like a very standard thing that you would try and do in sales. For example, if you have like the one big thing that you really want to sell, assuming that veganism is the ultimate thing that somebody could do, which I actually disagree that it's going to help more animals. And if the person doesn't want to buy that, you have some fallback positions that you can still offer some kind of What would you say? Second place prize. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Anyway. So, guys, I want to let you in on something that I'm going to be doing. It's a bit cheeky. We're going to see. This is going to be my way of trying to raise some good money for the animal movement. And it's going to come in two parts. First, very excitingly, the title is not lying. We are dropping the Vegan 2.0 merch store. We're dropping the Vegan 2.0 merch store. We've got caps, we've got beanies, t-shirts, hoodies, we've got tote bags, phone cases, and we've even got a Vegan 2.0 mug. I ordered one of these myself today. 100% of all of the profits are going to effective animal charities. So it's partially a fundraiser, but it's mainly to get out the concept of Vegan 2.0 more broadly. So I think that if you Google Vegan 2.0, you find my channel and my content about it. Look at this. It even comes up in the AI Google result. Vegan 2.0 refers to an advanced mindset in veganism. Fuck it, that is so fucking true. That's so base. AI's gone back on this. An advanced mindset in veganism, shifting from simply minimizing personal harm to actively maximizing harm prevention for animals through broader advocacy, donations, and influence. Championed by figures like Chris Bryant. Way. It's a philosophical upgrade focusing on effectiveness, effective altruism, using tools like the Vegan 2.0 app to track impact, lives saved via advocacy. It also describes whole food nutrition products like shakes designed for clean. All right, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. Fucking advanced mindset. That's you guys. That's you guys in chat. You know that? Any advanced mindset vegans in chat? All right, well, we don't need to go through that. But anyway, point is, if you Google Vegan 2.0, you're going to find your way to this concept of helping way more animals, right? This is, I don't know how much of this is just giving me my own, what I want to see. It's all my own shit. But so there's a couple of products called Vegan 2.0. Here's some sort of shake and whole food stuff, right? I think there's even some cosmetics with that title. But for the most part, you're seeing my stuff, you're seeing my videos, you're seeing the concept of Vegan 2.0, right? Move beyond personal dietary restriction, Vegan 1.0, to become a force for change, preventing harm on a larger scale. We need more people doing this. I really think this is the way that we're going to make a huge difference for animals. Shifting the frame around veganism to being about proactivity, right? Rather than just being something that you don't do. And so that is the main purpose of the Vegan 2.0 merch store. I'm going to put the link in chat. It's in the video description as well. This is all through one of these, they do the design and shipping platforms. So I have to say, I haven't seen any of this merch yet. I ordered myself the cap and the mug today. But we got the t-shirt, we got the beanie, the hoodie, the tote bag, the phone cases as well. And the idea is that these are just going to be visible things that people can see. You can show the world, help spread the word about Vegan 2.0. And again, 100% of profits on these are going to effective animal charities. So it's also a way to support effective animal charities. Now, I will say this, because of platform fees and you're paying VAT on these things and other things like that, is not the most effective way to give your money to these charities. So if you're not a merch person and you want to support these charities, don't feel obliged to be doing it via the merch. I do think that the merch is good in terms of spreading the word about Vegan 2.0 and growing the people engaged in this. Come to think about it, why haven't I thought about trying to promote your channel? True, Poe, why haven't you thought about that? It's one of the most effective interventions available. Truly. But yeah, I hope that if people are seen around wearing this stuff, it's going to inspire at least some people to either ask you about it and you can tell them about it, or just to Google it. And if they do that, they are going to come to our channel and find the way of Vegan 2.0. So all of these are... What's the lowest thing we got on here? I think the mug at $20 US. We've got the phone cases and the hats at 25. We got the t-shirt and the tote bag at 30 and the hoodie at $40. Again, 100% of the profits are going to effective animal charities, so I'm not taking a penny off of any of these. The cost of making these, I think the caps are about $15 to make, so the margin is about $10. There's a little bit of payment processing fees, but mostly this is going, well, not mostly, right? Most of it's going on the cost of the thing, but all the profits are going to go to effective animal charities, and I'll give to the EA Animal Welfare Fund, or to FarmKind, maybe. Who knows? It'll be one of them. I used to give directly to animal charity evaluators, but I get grants from them sometimes, and they've said that you can't be doing both, basically, which is fair enough. So this is the merch store, and not shown here because I am going to do a little bit more prepping and thinking about this before I launch it. So this is not shown in the live store as it is at the moment, but this is going to be an option. The gold cap. The Vegan 2.0 gold cap. Price $30,000. This is currently hidden, but it is going to be added to the merch store. Again, 100% of profits going to effective animal charity, so I'm not making any money off of these. Look at that. What a thing of beauty. They have a guy modeling it. With it, these hats don't even exist yet, but they have a good-looking guy modeling it already. And for the low price of $30,000, the Vegan 2.0 gold cap can be yours. So, of course, part of the point here is as a fundraising thing, right? These still cost $15 to make, same as the black caps. But in this case, there's over $29,000 of margin, and all of that will go to effective animal charities. So whilst the general merch, and this is the stuff that's available at the moment, is going to apply for a second mortgage next Monday based. True. The general merch here is mainly about spreading the word of the channel, having the Vegan 2.0 brand, starting conversations about it, getting people to find the channel. The gold merch, I've only done the cap currently. I think that's where I'll leave it. Is primarily a fundraising thing. Now, again, it's the case that this is not necessarily the most effective way to give to these animal charities. So part of the reason for that is because charity donations, you're obviously not paying VAT, whereas selling goods, you are paying VAT. So there's literally thousands of pounds in tax in the case of selling merch like this, which you don't get from direct donations to the charity, right? So it is a little bit inefficient in that way. But here's the real play with the gold cap. I'm going to try to judo flip this into some good coverage for the channel. I've written this press release. You're seeing this exclusively. I might even private the stream afterwards because I want this to be not, something that's already public. But this is my plan with this, okay? See what you think of this press release. I wrote this today. Hey, Rebecca, nice to see you. Really good question. I'll come back to that in a minute. Rebecca's asked me about the shrimp thing. That's a very fair question. I will answer, I promise. Never answers. What do you guys think of this press release for the $30,000 vegan gold cap, vegan 2.0 gold cap? This vegan YouTuber wants you to buy a $30,000 hat. An amateur vegan YouTuber has listed baseball caps for sale for $30,000, £22,425.79, plus VAT and shipping. The hats appeared on the merch store of the small channel Chris Bryant PhD over the weekend. While the listing might look like a clerical error, Bryant insists that the hats will sell. Excellent value for money. People might find this surprising at first, but the gold vegan 2.0 cap actually represents excellent value for money, said Bryant, 33. Although the caps, embroidered with vegan 2.0, are described as gold, they are made from 100% cotton. Little picture of the listing there for the press release. The branding refers to Bryant's vegan 2.0 concept. I might just say the vegan 2.0 concept, so it's not so me, you know. The idea that vegans can help more animals by giving to charity, emailing decision makers, and posting on social media. The listing explains that 100% of profits from sales of the hats will go to effective animal charities, meaning that purchasing one can save over 100,000 animals. The most effective animal charities can spare about 4 animals to the dollar, Bryant explains. The hat only costs about $15 to make, so most of the cost is really a highly impactful donation. The $30,000 price appears to be the maximum allowed on the platform fourth wall. To be honest, I wanted to sell them for a lot more, says Bryant. True story. Inefficient, ? Some have criticised this extravagant merchandise as an inefficient way to raise money for charity. Unlike direct donations to charity, selling highly marked up products means that VAT is payable on the transactions, adding a further £4,485.92 to the price tag, or let's put in the UK, because this is, which does not go to the charities. That brings the total price to £26,915.51. At this price, the 2.9% payment processing fee alone is over £600, admits Bryant. Despite these inefficiencies, Bryant remains positive about the hats as a vehicle for raising money for animal charities. The vegan 2.0 gold cap is a status symbol, says Bryant. Some people will pay $30,000 for a watch to show they've got a lot of money. For the same price, the vegan 2.0 gold cap shows that you've got a lot of money, but it also saves over 100,000 animals. The online merchandise store also lists a black vegan 2.0 cap for just $25. Bryant has not sold any of the hats at the time of writing. Or let's put any gold hats. We've got a little bit more blurb, but this is my idea for launching this. The $30,000 cap, and you know, there's a lot of things that I like about this. To blow my own horn for a second here, there's a lot of things that I like about this. One is obviously it's sensational and it can get headlines and attention, and especially I'm viewing this as bait for vegan hating outlets as well, right? I mean, a vegan YouTuber selling a hat for $30,000 is surely irresistible to writers at the Daily Mail or the Telegraph or other places like this. And I don't mind that, taking a little bit of bashing and negative comments and stuff like that. I think that's okay. If one person buys one of these, it saves over 100,000 animals. Probably no one will buy them. Actually, I don't know. There's no cost to me if nobody buys them. Again, they don't even get made. They're made to order, right? So despite this bloke wearing one, they don't exist. I haven't invested anything to make this happen. If one person buys one, then it's over 100,000 animals saved. So why not have it as an option, you know? And you never know with these things. You just never know how well it would get picked up by media. It's a very outrageous, like clickbaity headline, right? This vegan YouTuber wants you to buy a $30,000 hat. I deliberately made it a little bit incendiary here. I do want you to buy it. I do want you to buy it. It's so, you know, put my Daily Mail reader hat on. It's so incendiary. It's so like entitled, or you know, they're gonna love that. They're gonna love that. It's red meat for them. But if this reaches the right people, again, one sale, over 100,000 animals saved, and moreover, it's again just normalizing donations as a way of helping animals, getting that to be more known, getting that to be sort of in the zeitgeist, right? So if it doesn't sell, it's nothing lost, nothing gained. If it doesn't sell and I get the media coverage, I don't mind looking like a bit of a wally in the media. I've been blessed with a high threshold for embarrassment. So, you know, why not give it a go? That's the Vegan 2.0 gold cap for $30,000 plus VAT and postage. Who knows? Who knows? There's some crazy rich people out there. I know this is, you know, seems wild for most people to contemplate, but there's some crazy people out there. Personally, I do think this would be a fucking baller now, right? That this exists. If you saw someone wearing the gold cap, you'd be like, whoa, right? Obviously, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but why not have this as an option, right? Can imagine them bringing the same number of trolls PETA has accumulated over their entire career. Maybe. We'll be ready for them. Next stream is just going to be pure trolls in chat. We're going to 100x the viewers, but it's going to be all trolls. So I haven't sent this out yet. And again, I genuinely might private the stream, or this section of the stream, if you can do that, because I don't want it to be, you know, I'm going to send this to journalists and I don't want the leads to get stolen. So the link's available now, but it's not viewable from the main shop. But here's the main store. I've ordered myself the mug and the cap. I haven't seen any of these yet, so I can't honestly speak to the quality of them. I kind of want the cap to come as well, so that I can make sure it's not crap before I start selling the $30,000 one. So there we go. Who thinks we're going to sell one? Who thinks we're not going to sell any? I think either outcome would kind of be fine. Obviously, selling them would be based. And would raise, over $29,000 a go for effective animal charities. It might be genius, you know? It might be wild, it might be genius. I just don't know yet. I don't mind if it generates a little bit of hate, you know? I'm willing to, it's a cross I'm willing to bear. So that's the $30,000 Vegan 2.0 gold cap. You know, I made this originally with black, like a black cap with yellow text, but it just looked a bit crappy. So I think this one looks a lot nicer. I think this looks really nice, honestly. I'm looking forward to getting my cap and my mug. You're going to see me on stream next time with my Vegan 2.0 mug. These came pretty quickly as well. I think it says like a week in my thing that in my email that I got about it. So there you go. Go check out the merch store. The main purpose of this, again, is all it's all going to effective animal charities. I'm not taking a penny out of any of this. But yeah, really the main purpose is to drive awareness of the channel. I I guess both for the regular merch and for the gold cap. But obviously, if we do get one sale of the gold cap, that's going to be as much as I've donated in my life, probably, right? Or there or thereabouts. And worst case, if media pick it up, we get more interest to the channel, you know? I appreciate that, Poe. Yeah, I mean, I'm also skeptical, but you gotta take some risks. Again, really, there's no downside if it doesn't sell. So I'm not going to publish that yet because I want it to be. Journalists might want to say, you know, tell us when it's going to come out and have a few days to write it or whatever. But yeah, I'll send that out. And let me know if you can think of any journalists who that seems like their flavor. I was asking ChatGPT about this earlier, so I got some ideas, but yeah, if there's anyone who wants to cover my $30,000 vegan 2.0 gold cap, that exclusive's up for grabs, you know. Right, what else we got? Oh, the shrimp thing. Okay, let's talk about the shrimp thing. So yeah, Rebecca says, I saw you donate to the Shrimp Welfare Project. Do you think there's a number of shrimp that is more valuable than a human? Or there's no threshold that the shrimp are more important? Oh, that's a devastating framing for this question because, yeah, I mean, I was talking about this earlier in the Discord server. My reasoning on the video, on the short that I made where we donated to Shrimp Welfare Project, is that even if there's a very basic form of sentience or a very low chance of sentience, let's say, there are just so many shrimp that it's surely kind of additive in a way that gets to a threshold that we ought to care about anyway. And somebody else said in the Discord, well, you're assuming that it's like a total model rather than an average model. And there's this broader point about whether the sum of lots of small sentient experiences could ever equal, you know, one more detailed or more vivid sentient experience. Have you asked ChatGPT of the possible negative outcomes? True, AQ. Not a bad idea. Should we do that? Should we do that? I was saying ChatGPT generically. I was talking to Gemini about this. So I'm going to pick that up without showing my Gemini on screen. Here we go. That's a good shout, AQ. Hey, we should have learned something from reading that FarmKind post just now. What are the potential negative impacts of this? Let's see. The VAT thing's a bit of a piss, I'm not going to lie. It ends up being, you know, less efficient than donating directly. But I still think, I mean, I think it's worth it for the media signaling alone, right? We're going to preview we're going to private the stream, so there's, as long as there's no Daily Mail journalists in chat. Yeah, you don't get that with direct donations, but here we go. Right, here we go. All right, I'm gonna put this on screen. I don't see why I can't put this on screen. What are the potential negative impacts of this? This is my Gemini conversation. While the golden cap is a clever vegan 2.0 signal, the specific type of high-stakes provocative marketing carries a risk that a PhD-led channel should anticipate. Based on current trends in philanthropy and creator economies, there are potential negative impacts. Oh, here are the potential negative impacts. This is in my YouTube gem where it has a bunch of my docs and stuff like that loaded in, so it's very is always very keen to use the lingo from the transcripts of things that I've written. Anyway. The greed narrative and brand confusion, as seen in recent UK debates over greedy charity shop pricing, the public often reacts negatively to high price tag on some. I mean, yeah, that's fine if the public reacts negatively. That's kind of anticipated. The risk: viewers only see a thumbnail or a screenshot of a $25,000 hat. Oh, I've upped the price since then. Clearly, I've upped the price since then. Viewers only see a thumbnail or screenshot of a $25,000 hat, may not stick around for the prevention math. They may simply label you as another out-of-touch influencer or a grifter. Yeah, I mean, I anticipate that to some extent. That's fine. Vegan 2.0 conflict. Your goal is to move from avoiding to preventing. If the stunt makes you look elitist, you might alienate the very Vegan 1.0 audience you're trying to upgrade. Yeah, I mean, I can't afford this hat. That bears saying. And maybe I should put that in the press release. That's actually probably a good shout. Let's make it. I mean, again, I don't care for my own sake if I look elitist. This is saying maybe I could put people off of the whole endeavor. I don't want people to think this is the barrier to entry for being a vegan 2.0, right? Says Brian. Let's say, despite admitting that he could not afford one of these caps himself. Worth adding. Cannibalization of future giving, warm glow effect. Research from Harvard Business School suggests that high-profile or trade-based fundraising can actually decrease future donations. Psychological shift. When a donation is structured as a trade, money for a hat, it moves from a social transaction doing good to an economic transaction buying a luxury item. The impact, even if someone buys it, they may feel they've done their bit for the decade, reducing their long-term commitment to effective animal charities. Well, they kind of would have done their bit for the decade as far as I'm concerned. That's about how much I've given in the last decade. I don't think that's too much of a risk. If you ask AI for risks or downsides, like, it will think of some, and it's a good sign, I guess, if you can kind of discount them or say that you're not worried about them. Reputational risk via inefficiency. I mean, this is the main thing that I'm a bit ticked off about, is you lose a lot to VAT. Positioning yourself as a rational evidence-based researcher. The irony, by selling a hat where 5,000 goes to VAT and fees, you're technically engaging in a low-impact act. Yeah, medium impact. I mean, again, you're going to lose, like, it's going to be at like 0.8 times the efficiency of giving directly to the charities. That's a fair criticism. I actually, you know what, though, when I was writing the press release, I was like, that's at least something that makes it a bit controversial, or like gives people something to hook onto to be able to say negative things about it, right? Which, again, totally fine if that happens, like, from my perspective. Yeah. The Captain Tom effect. Oh, that's interesting. In the UK, high-profile charitable stunts are under extreme scrutiny. Any grey area regarding where the money goes, even if it's just platform fees, can lead to accusations of mismanagement. Yeah, I mean, I would have to obviously do transparent accounting and show receipts and all that kind of stuff. Platform fees. Yeah, I think if I'm being open about the platform fees, it's okay. Technical and security risks, chargeback scams. Do you think it's worth maybe it's worth noting in the description that there are high platform fees? Because I think it's like 3%, right? So it's like over $700. 2.9%. It's over $700. Perhaps this is just the thing, not the actual store. All right. Well, perhaps I'll add a note of that. Technical and security risks, chargeback scams on high-value items. Friendly fraud, where a buyer receives the item and then disputes the charge with their bank, is a major risk. Fourth wall stripe might protect you, but a $25,000 dispute could freeze your entire account for months. Fourth wall may flag the account for suspicious activity if a 25k transaction hits a relatively new store, potentially getting your merch shop taken down just as your video goes viral. Yeah, okay, that's worth knowing about. Hey, this is a good idea, AQ. Appreciate that. That's worth knowing about, but I don't think that either of these is going to stop me doing it. I mean, there's no... obviously, I do have a store outside of that, but whatever. I think it would. I think in this case, it would be explainable. Freeze your entire account for months. I mean, well, that wouldn't be ideal. But again, I don't think it's enough to stop me from doing it, because I feel like someone doing a scam on something like this is pretty unlikely. Ethical mission drift. In your transcripts, you mentioned the baller and genius archetypes. True. I do have some unpublished scripts, so some of this might not be. The risk. If the channel becomes known for high-priced stunts, it might overshadow your core PhD-level research on meat alternatives and social science. You risk becoming a stunt creator rather than a thought leader. I mean, yeah, this is also plugged into my professional account here, so it's like, be careful of your research reputation, basically. I don't think this is negative for a research reputation. If anything, it's one of these counterintuitive things that ask people to go, okay, let's look at the evidence for this. How to mitigate the... It's talking in such a vague language, the PhD fix. I hate that. To keep the PR benefits while avoiding the fallout, watermark the listing, but do not... Okay, so this was also suggesting that I say, don't actually buy this. You should just give to the charities and then I'll give you a hat. I don't think that is going to work quite the same way, especially in the press release, but also more broadly, because if I am selling merchandise, presumably I do have to pay VAT on that merchandise. Or, it gets charged on the platform in this case, but yeah. Lean into the inefficiency in your video, explicitly calculate the tax on animals to show why you're telling people not to buy it there, but to donate directly. Again, I'm not going to do that. I am going to make that clear that that's an issue, though. Transparency, post a public commitment to donate or use a platform that allows donation at checkout if it's clearer. Yeah. I mean, essentially, I am doing that. I've put on there 100% of the fees will go to charity. I'll post the receipts. And also, I was thinking about this because I am professionally in the animal space. I think you can make an argument that I've got too much to lose if I was to pull some sort of scam around this, or it wouldn't really be worth it for me. Even if I made $30,000 and then I just kept it, I wouldn't be able to get work anymore. So that wouldn't be a particularly sustainable strategy. But yeah, this was worth asking about potential downsides. I think this certainly gave me pause for thought, but I don't think there's enough of a reason not to do it. Going to have to be aware of the or like very on top of the transparency if any do get sold. And what was the other one? Yeah, I guess that the transaction fees. So maybe we'll give some sort of disclaimer about that. But there we go, that was worth doing. I appreciate that. Did I answer the shrimp thing? I feel like I just got distracted. I feel like I got a part of the way into an answer and then didn't really finish it. But ultimately, is there a number of shrimp that can equal the experience of a human? One way that I would think about this, I think yes. I don't know what that number is, but I think that yes. Maybe there's some wacky entailments of that kind of view that I haven't thought about. Maybe that itself is the wacky entailment. It's kind of wacky already. But yeah, my intuition is that if there's a more basic or lower probability sentience going on in shrimp, then some number of them could equal the sentient experience of a human on expectation. And, one way that I would think about that is relative to some super sentient giant that's much bigger than humans. We would seem to want to say that, hey, this giant might be 1,000,000 times more sentient than humans, but that doesn't just mean he can or well, yeah, we wouldn't want to accept that our like moral weight is essentially zero compared to theirs. So I think that translates down. I mean, obviously it feels weird to be like, yeah, I'm pulling the trolley problem to kill a person to save like 5 million shrimp or something like that. I think it's also down to scale neglect, where we can't sort of scale our emotional reactions appropriately to very large numbers. Like I just said 5 million shrimp, but I could have said 5 billion, and probably it kind of hits you kind of the same, right? Even though one's 1,000 times bigger than the other, because it's just difficult to scale our emotional reactions like that. So I think yes is my answer, Rebecca, but I am open to criticisms of that view and alternative views as well, because I kind of don't see... I couldn't explain the alternative. So there we go. Maybe someone can. Right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for joining me for more discourse. This is the FarmKind EA post that we read. And here again is the Vegan 2.0 merch store. 100% of charity, 100% of profits going to effective animal charities. So get your Vegan 2.0 merch. Main purpose here is to spread the word. Wear it out, be seen in it, have people ask you about Vegan 2.0, have people Google it, come and find the channel. You know, this is just really mainly a way that I thought of building the momentum of what we're doing here. So I appreciate, like hell, all of you guys for being some of the very early adopters and on board with this way of thinking about things. And I would love it if you help me spread the word. I'm going to be wearing my Vegan 2.0 cap down the gym probably and out and about. I like a good cap. And my mug, I'm going to have my mug on stream. I'll be like a woke Steven Crowder. Thanks again for watching, everyone. We'll wrap it up there, and I will be back soon. I'm going to do a longer video with thoughts about FarmKind when I collect them. But in the meantime, probably do a couple more streams. So I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in, and take care. Cheers.